This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, plus special features and reports with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
ICE under attack. Good afternoon. Welcome aboard. Assaults on ICE agents are up more than 800% in this country from last year as federal immigration authorities work to deport from this country those in it illegally. Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons.
All they want to do is their law enforcement mission, yet they are being villainized and demonized for doing their lawful law enforcement job that they signed up for.
Louisiana Senator John Kennedy says you'd better play nice with ICE. He thinks the doxing of these federal workers should be a federal crime.
And until we start putting these folks in jail, it's going to continue.
Fox's Matt Finn continues our coverage.
ICE agents are getting their names and personal information posted online along with death threats.
Democrats in Congress want to force ICE agents to take off their masks while making arrests.
Only the bad guys wear masks.
Why are they masked?
Who are these people?
Meantime, the Department of Homeland Security is calling on the Justice Department to prosecute anyone who posts the photos and private information of ICE agents online or in public. One more day of icky and sticky heat relief arrives tomorrow, not soon enough. Until then, we're sweating it out with real field conditions of 95 to 100 degrees.
This is the stuff you want to stay indoors in the air conditioning, especially between noon and 4 o'clock.
Meteorologist Dylan Dreyer says real field conditions is when you factor in that humidity, and that humidity is, in a word, oppressive today. So how do you beat the heat?
We always advise residents to stay hydrated, stay in cool or shaded locations. Stores and shopping centers are always a good option.
Bob Lutz is the town of Tonawanda Emergency Services Coordinator. Weatherman Kevin Williams says be on the lookout for rogue thunderstorms this afternoon and evening. Wild weather proved deadly last night in New Jersey. An instructor at an archery range in Jackson Township was killed by lightning. Fellow instructor Gene Grodsky was there when it happened.
It did not rain. There was no thunder. There was nothing. It was just like the finger of God came down and pow. And that was it. And people were laying on the ground.
Over a dozen others were injured, including 8 children.
One of the injured victims suffered burns and another was knocked unconscious. The victims range in age from 61 years old to as young as 7 years old.
CBS's Addie Guajardo says a local Boy Scout troop was on the range at the time of the lightning strike. The U.S. Senate's voted to claw back $9.4 billion in unspent federal funding for the World Health Organization, UNICEF, and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Hi, welcome to Sesame Street.
From PBS to NPR.
All things considered from NPR.
Funding for 1,500 local public radio and television stations nationwide is on the chopping block as the Senate seeks to slash spending in a new White House package. Catherine Marr is the president and CEO of NPR.
This is going to hurt communities where they need support most, which are rural stations that serve communities that do not have access to other forms of local news.
NPR and PBS have revealed their left-wing bias time and time again.
The package eliminates over $1 billion from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which funds NPR and PBS, and it cuts roughly $8 billion to foreign aid, including the World Health Organization, UNICEF, and other programs that were part of USAID before it was dismantled, making many of the cuts proposed by Elon Musk's Doge team permanent.
Correspondent Nicole Killian on Capitol Hill. The so-called clawback bill marks the first time since the Clinton administration that the Senate's voted to rescind funding they'd already approved. The Justice Department has fired federal prosecutor Maureen Comey, the daughter of former FBI Director James Comey. Legal analyst Lori Levinson.
The questions that this raises may be greater than the answers that we get at this time. And that's
That's because Maureen Comey was involved in the recent prosecution of Sean Diddy Combs, and more significantly, in the investigation and prosecution of Jeffrey Epstein.
Maureen Comey's father is facing a perjury investigation for sworn testimony he gave to Congress about the Trump-Russia collusion hoax. A new report out of Britain today says dogs can smell Parkinson's disease. Specially trained dogs were able to sniff out the neurological disorder 80% of the time, according to the scientific study. These findings could be a breakthrough, as doctors currently have no definitive diagnostic test to screen for Parkinson's. Today marks the 70th anniversary of Disneyland.
All who come to this happy place, welcome. Disneyland is your land.
Reporter Matt Piper.
The opening day on July 17th, 1955 was covered on black and white TV.
As you go on through that tunnel past the Disneyland Santa Fe.
The price to get in back then, $1, then 10 to 30 cents a ride.
Here is one of the most famous motion picture theaters in the world. It'll be here at Disneyland.
And even Walt Disney himself was a part of the opening day.
Before you enter this realm, I'd like to read this dedication.
The California Parks Opening Day Gala drew a crowd of more than 11,000 invited guests. Plus, of course,
the real star of it is Mickey and Minnie Mouse.
That report from Matt Piper at Disneyland in Anaheim. Still to come on the Noon Report, rotten eggs in Amish country, New York readies for smartphone ban, and Cuomo's chances in November.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams. We have some big changes ahead in our weather over the next 24 hours. I'll spell them out in the forecast coming up in 10 minutes.
All right, Kevin, we'll see you then. Let's check the stories making news where you live next. All over New York and Pennsylvania, New York Governor Kathy Hochul's reminding school districts they must have their smartphone ban policy submitted to the state by August 1st. The governor says the addictiveness of digital devices is by design.
The algorithms were intended and designed by the social media companies to draw our children in, hold them there, and many times take them to dark places.
Hochul hopes the smartphone ban will ease teen distraction and reduce mental health issues. Starting in September, New York is mandating a complete bell-to-bell ban, but has left it up to the local districts to craft for themselves their own implementation policies. Another Democrats emerged to challenge New York's 23rd District Republican Congressman Nick Langworthy in next year's midterms. Aaron Geis of Olean is a professor of theology at St. Bonaventure. Geis says New Yorkers are struggling with an affordability crisis. The 23rd District includes all or parts of 9 counties throughout the southern tier and the Buffalo region. A pit stop in Pittston yesterday for Vice President J.D. Vance.
We're going to invest in American workers and American families every single day, and that's my solemn promise to every person in this room.
He was in Luzerne County, PA, promoting the so-called Big Beautiful Bill, which Congress passed 2 weeks ago. Vance spoke at Don's Machine Shop. Employee Donnie Eifert telling WNEP,
always push, and if we had the staff that would stay longer to work more hours, we could get more done.
The Trump budget includes tax breaks for business owners and no tax on overtime for workers. Embattled Monroe County, New York District Attorney Sandra Dorley has sold her home in Webster and bought a new home in South Carolina. Dorley's facing public censure for her belligerent behavior toward a police officer during a controversial traffic stop last year. 13 Wham in Rochester says Dorley is still showing up to work each week at the DA's office. Former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo's mounting an independent run for mayor of New York City. He lost last month's Democratic primary to socialist Zohran Mamdani.
The early polling suggests that Zohran Mamdani has a plurality, not a majority, of voters behind him in a general election.
That's Spectrum News political analyst Errol Lewis. He says a crowded field in this mayoral contest could make for a tight race in the fall.
There's also a Republican candidate. That's another 20 to 23 points that are going to go elsewhere. And let's remember that the sitting mayor of the city, Eric Adams, is also running. He's running on an independent line as well.
Lewis adds Mamdani's been able to capitalize on the youth vote and their frustration with the high cost of living in the Big Apple.
Crime and public safety are not at the top of the agenda. They were a few months ago. but affordability is just really trumping everything and pushing everything else off the page.
The ex-governor, Andrew Cuomo, says he would be willing to drop out after Labor Day if he's not polling well, and is considering endorsing another candidate, perhaps the current mayor, Eric Adams. New York is underperforming when it comes to homeless shelters. A new audit by the state comptroller shows 60% of homeless shelters in the Empire State are in unsatisfactory condition. New York has the second highest homeless population of any state, second only to California. Health officials in Pennsylvania are sounding the alarm over a spike in salmonella cases tied to raw dairy products.
The Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture is urging residents to discard all raw milk and cheese from the family cow, a Chambersburg dairy, after more than 70 salmonella cases have been reported. The products were sold both in-store and online for pickup at over 50 locations statewide. Affected items include a wide range of milk and cheese varieties. Officials say all products from the dairy should be thrown out, regardless of sell-by date. A separate warning also covers raw milk from Byers Organic Dairy, which tested positive for E. coli. Brian Query, Family Life News.
Thank you, Brian. More than 80 high school students from all across Pennsylvania will be huddling in Harrisburg next week for the 25th annual City on the Hill Youth Leadership Conference. They'll learn how politics works, but more importantly, how to articulate a Christian worldview.
While we use the political process and they spend a couple of days at the Pennsylvania State Capitol, the real overarching reason that we do City on the Hill is to help these young people develop a stronger biblical worldview as they head out into the world.
Michael Gear at the Pennsylvania Family Institute says City on the Hill also helps students develop their God-given leadership skills.
One of our graduates from the very first year of City on the Hill back in 2001 just took a significant position in the Trump administration in D.C. So we're seeing some great fruit from it, but we got folks doing all sorts of different things, rocket scientists and moms and all sorts of different things, just exhibiting salt and light leadership in what they do.
To find out how to register for next year's City on the Hill Youth Leadership Conference, visit pafamily.org. Utica, Marist, Damon, Iona, Houghton, Roberts Wesleyan, just a few of the institutions of higher learning in New York who went from being a college to being a university. Now you can add Siena College to that list. The Albany area school will officially become Siena University at the beginning of the 2026 academic year. Hundreds of cyclists from all over America are taking part in this week's 27th annual Cycle the Erie Canal Bike Tour. It started last Saturday in Buffalo and will end this Sunday in Albany. Riders cover about 60 miles a day, stopping along the way to experience scenic vistas, pivotal history, and unparalleled bike riding. Spokesperson Erica Schneider says the tour made a stop in the Syracuse suburb of Camillus yesterday.
We have so many welcoming communities. It's hard to pick favorites, but I will say we have a number of communities along the trail that we have designated as Empire State Trail Towns, and these are communities that have gone above and beyond to provide services and amenities for bikers.
600 cyclists from 37 states are taking part in this year's bike tour. This year also is the 200th anniversary of the Erie Canal. Multiple roads in Lancaster County were closed for hours yesterday after a truck spilled 20,000 rotten eggs onto the roadway. The driver actually spilled 2 truckloads of eggs in separate incidents. They were in an open trailer that had collected rain from recent storms. The rainwater caused those eggs to float and fall out the back of the truck. As it was making a turn, a hazmat crew was called in to make sure the rotten eggs did not contaminate the Conestoga River. Penn State women's volleyball coach Katie Schumacher-Cawley was honored last night at the ESPY Awards in Los Angeles.
I'm beyond humbled and truly grateful for this moment. This past year has been one I could have never imagined. It's been filled with challenges, with grit, with tears, but also with perspective, purpose, and unbelievable love.
She was diagnosed with breast cancer last year, but never missed a practice while becoming the first female coach to win an NCAA Division I women's volleyball national championship.
Cancer changed my life, but it didn't take it. It didn't take my belief, it didn't take my spirit, and it didn't take my team.
The Penn State coach was presented the Jimmy V Award. It's named after the late NC State basketball coach Jim Valvano, who died of cancer. Since its founding in 1993, the Jimmy V Foundation has raised over $400 million for cancer research. And impressive light shows happening in the night sky for another month or so.
The Perseid meteor shower is going on now through August 23rd, coast to coast. NASA says no special viewing devices needed. Just get away from city lights and look up. They say you can see 50 to 100 meteors every hour. Perseids are fast-moving and sometimes leave a persistent train and a fireball. Viewing can happen anytime after 10 p.m., but it's best before dawn. I'm Bree Tennis.
All right, thank you, Bree. Still to come on the Noon Report, Doge cuts past the Senate, why socialism is bad politics, and what it's like to be a Christian in Iran.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. After 1,500 years of continuous Christian service, the world's oldest monastery is being forced to close its doors. According to several news sources, St. Catherine's Monastery will now be annexed by the Egyptian government and turned into a museum and a tourist attraction. Though the monks won't be kicked out yet, the ruling is the latest incident in the already precarious situation of Christians in the Middle East. Founded as a respite for wandering worshippers under Emperor Justinian in 527, St. Catherine sits at the foot of Mount Sinai. It's been a center of Christian identity since, shortly after the fall of the Western Roman Empire. That's 70 years before the first Archbishop of Canterbury became a Christian, and nearly a full century before the founding of Islam. And of course, it sits at one of the most significant places in all the Old Testament. Now, a claim at the heart of the case was whether or not Christianity is a Western intrusion into an indigenous Muslim area, and therefore if foreign Christian monks are occupying Egyptian land. Now, of course, it's true. After Christianity made the West what it is, missionaries were sent around the world. However, Middle Eastern and African Christians were building churches when the ancestors of Western Christians were still worshiping pagan gods. The areas that now make up North Africa, Egypt, Israel, Syria, Lebanon, and Turkey were once the heartland of Christianity and were only lost after centuries of conquest and persecution by Muslim overlords. Today, in almost all these nations, Christians are in real trouble. And yet, as Philip Jenkins noted in his book, The Next Christendom, the church is a global phenomenon that spans cultures, languages, and history. Last year on Pentecost Sunday, I asked our youth Sunday school class what the significance was of this day within both Scripture and church history. A young man with autism shouted out, "It's the church's birthday." I could not have said it better. As Luke recorded in Acts chapter 2, it was at the first Pentecost where the proclamation of the good news first went out to all nations. According to that account, Peter and the apostles preached Christ crucified to Parthians and Medes and Elamites and residents of Mesopotamia, Judea, Cappadocia, Pontus, Asia, Phrygia, Pamphylia, Egypt, and the parts of Libya belonging to Cyrene, and visitors from Rome, both Jews and proselytes, Cretans and Arabians. Yes, all those areas. And yes, Egypt. At Pentecost, there is the first indication that the scattering of the nations at the Tower of Babel will ultimately be reversed in the body of Christ. It's the fulfillment of God's promise to Abraham in Genesis 12, that in you all the families of the earth will be blessed. And it is a foretaste of what is described in Revelation chapter 7, of that great multitude that no one could number, from every nation, from all tribes and peoples and languages, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed in white robes with palm branches in their hands. See, as my young friend described it, Pentecost was indeed the birthday of the church, that redemptive instrument of God that proclaims that Christ is risen and is the true King of heaven and earth, and acts as the tool of God's renewal. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint.
All right, John, thank you much. Outside we go, Kevin Williams.
Here is your family life weather forecast. The call for today through the afternoon into the evening. Variable clouds, quite breezy in places, humid, a couple of scattered showers and thundery downpours. High temperatures 80s. Later tonight turning cooler. Low temps dropping towards 60 tomorrow. Much less humid than recent days. Cooler too. Early cloud cover, then sunny, high in the 70s. Saturday starts sunny, then clouds up. There'll be some showers by day's end with high temps near 80.
All right, Kevin, thank you very much. This is the Noon Report on Family Life. I'm your host, Bob Price, and here's what's happening Thursday, July 17th. A lightning strike killed a man last night at an archery range in New Jersey. A dozen others were injured.
What's going on there?
I believe a whole bunch of us were just struck by lightning.
The bolt of lightning happened as a group of children from a local Cub Scout troop had gathered on the range with their parents. This man witnessed it all.
The earth exploded, dirt went flying everywhere, and when I turned around, there was at least 7 people down on the ground flat.
The victims range in age from 61 to as young as 7. Aside from that one fatality, another person suffered serious burns while a third was knocked unconscious by the lightning. President Trump's border czar is blaming Democrats for a recent surge of violence against federal immigration agents.
You get senators and congressmen comparing ICE to Nazis, racists, Gestapo. It's just never ending.
Tom Homan says the rhetoric is fanning the flames of hate.
For those people that are unhinged, they feel emboldened when a member of Congress can attack ICE and comparing them to Hitler.
Homan opposes efforts in Congress to force ICE agents to remove their masks while making arrests. The U.S. Senate voted overnight to make nearly $9.5 billion in DOGE-related spending cuts. Foreign aid and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting will be impacted. Reporter Tony Waterman.
President Trump has long targeted public broadcasting, believing it to be too liberal. Without the funding, nearly 20% of public radio stations could close, mostly in rural areas that rely on the stations for emergency announcements.
The so-called clawback bill marks the first time since Bill Clinton was president that the Senate's voted to rescind funding, which they'd already approved. Zohran Mamdani, the socialist running for mayor of New York City, is meeting this week with Democratic Party leaders Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. Neither Schumer nor Jeffries has endorsed Mamdani yet.
You see what his Marxist and his communist platforms are. People all across the city are recognizing that he cannot be a viable option.
New York Assemblyman Matt Slater thinks Mamdani's politics are dangerous.
I mean, a Mamdani win here is going to propel a communist agenda all across this country. If you look at what he's done in the Assembly, where I currently serve, he stood on the state legislature floor and he actually referred to his colleagues as his comrades. When you look at the legislation that he sponsored, it is right out of Karl Marx's playbook.
Slater says Mamdani supports government-run grocery stores and a $30 an hour minimum wage. But that's not all.
He sponsored legislation that would have the government restrict the amount of miles you can drive in your car. He's also sponsored legislation that would require sex education for kindergartners. And it really, I think, questions his ability to be the mayor of the greatest city in the world.
New York Assemblyman Matt Slater. Now to a potential shakeup in airport security. The TSA may soon lift restrictions on liquids and gels in your carry-on luggage. This action follows last week's decision by airport officials to stop making passengers take off their shoes while passing through security. NBC News aviation expert Tom Costello.
I've talked to security experts who are very concerned about what Homeland Security and the TSA is doing. They point out we do not have certified technology in airports to test for liquids and gel explosives. It doesn't exist right now. Secondly, we don't have technology at airports to test for shoe bombs. That's why you were supposed to take off your shoes when they go through these magnetometers. Currently, there is no shoe bomb detection at U.S. airports. And the concern is that the United States is now kind of pulling back its security posture just as we have a very big year ahead of us next year. The World Cup is coming. The America 250 celebrations are coming. And a reminder that we have seen U.S. action in the Middle East this year, right? The United States bombed Iran. It bombed Yemen. It's been supplying weapons to Israel in Gaza.
That's NBC's Tom Costello. This is the Noon Report on Family Life.
This
This is Faith Under Fire. We take you straight to the voices on the front lines of religious battlegrounds. I'm news anchor Sarah Harnish, and with me today, Voice of the Martyrs Vice President Todd Nettleton. We're talking Iran. You're connected on the inside. Talk to me about how the Iranian Christian churches are doing since the U.S. bombing of the nuclear sites there.
Christians in Iran are always persecuted. They are always under pressure from the Islamic government, but that pressure has kind of ratcheted up since the war with Israel, since the U.S. attacks. Hundreds, I would say even thousands of people have been arrested. Now, not all of those are Christians, but Christians are seen as sympathetic to the West. They're seen as sympathetic to Israel. It has become kind of an excuse. Hey, we're arresting people anyway. Let's just grab the Christians as well. And so this has been a time of increased pressure for our brothers and sisters inside Iran.
What does it look like to be part of the underground Christian church in Iran?
You know, we have just had a conversation on Voice of the Martyrs Radio with a lady who was an underground church leader. And one of the things she talked about is just making peace with the idea that you will be persecuted. You will be arrested. You could be beaten up. As a woman, she had to come to the understanding, I could be sexually assaulted by the authorities, by the police. And just coming to grips with that fear, overcoming that fear and saying, okay, the Lord is faithful. Even if I do get arrested, the Lord is faithful. Even if I do get beaten, the Lord is faithful, and He will be with me in that circumstance. And so that's part of following Christ in Iran.
Can you share a little bit of her story?
You know, I love the story, and she shared it on our conversation on VOM Radio about coming to faith. Her and her husband were having trouble in their marriage. It was heading towards divorce. She said she would turn on the vacuum cleaner so that nobody could hear her yelling at Allah. Allah, you're not helping us. Allah, my marriage is terrible. Where are you? What are you even doing? And the Lord sent a relative of hers who had left Iran and had become a follower of Jesus Christ. He actually had a dream where the Lord told him, go back to Iran and talk to your family. So he showed up, and she was at dinner with him and started to recognize, like, he's different now than he used to be. That led to him sharing his faith with her. She began reading the Bible, became a follower of Christ, and after a few weeks of her following Jesus, her husband looked at her and said, well, what happened to you? You're totally different now. What happened to you? Did you become a Christian? And she said, well, I didn't want to deny Christ, but also I was a little bit afraid. And she said, yeah, I did become a Christian. And a week later, her husband also accepted Christ, and their marriage was restored, and they became bold witnesses for Christ, even in spite of the risks that involves.
You know, that is not the first time that I've heard about Christ reaching people in these places that seem unreachable. I'm hearing the Lord reaching people through dreams and through visions. It's happening all over that country.
It is. We have heard some amazing stories of God at work and God revealing Himself. So the Lord is certainly at work in, as you say, a very difficult place. It's not like we can send missionaries. It's not like there are churches that are open and above ground that people could just sort of wander into. One of the ways that that's happening is through broadcast ministries, and Voice of the Martyrs is partnering with several that are doing satellite television broadcasts. One of our broadcast partners, just talked to him a few weeks ago as the bombs were falling, and he said once the bombing started, they went to live broadcasts for 12 hours a day, and they were broadcasting live into Iran 12 hours a day, praying with people, taking phone calls, encouraging people, hey, even in the midst of this war, even in the midst of this upheaval, God is faithful. God loves you. He has a plan for you. And they got some incredible feedback from people, because times of war are times of questions. They're times of upheaval. They're times when you're thinking about what happens to me after I die. If one of these bombs hits my apartment, what's going to happen to me? Those are times when the gospel can really advance rapidly, because people are hungry for truth. We are also working with evangelists and church planters on the ground inside Iran, helping them with tools and training and encouragement. We are also delivering Bibles. It's difficult. It's not legal, but it is possible to get God's word into Iran. Sometimes that is digitally. Sometimes that's printed on paper. So we are doing everything in our power to stand with the Iranian church and to equip them for this to be a season of harvest. One of the interesting things about Iran that is different from some other countries is that the government is the Islamic leaders. It's the mullahs who are running the government. And they've said for 45 years, we are running our country according to Islamic principles. We're doing this the way the Quran tells us to do it. If the government doesn't work, let's say that a bombing happens and the government didn't warn anybody, the government wasn't able to stand up and stop that bombing from happening. If the government doesn't work, what that means in the hearts and the minds of the Iranian people is maybe Islam doesn't work. And so that creates very fertile soil to plant gospel seeds. They already have questions about whether Islam is really the truth, whether it really works. And then you come along as a Christian and say, hey, I follow Jesus Christ. He says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And that speaks to the hearts of Iranian people who are asking these questions already.
Learn more at persecution.com.
All right. Thank you very much, Sarah. Fascinating conversation today with Todd Nettleton at Voice of the Martyrs. This is the Noon Report on Family Life.
A very good afternoon to all. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. Certainly has been a busy week for thundery downpours each and every afternoon, and there are a few we're tracking out there today, but some changes are coming. A cold front lying across the Great Lakes will push southeast and usher in clearing, cooling, and generally much more pleasing weather as we head toward tomorrow. The call for today, though, through the afternoon into the evening, variable clouds, quite breezy in places, humid, a couple of scattered showers and thundery downpours. High temperatures 80s, later tonight turning cooler, low temps dropping towards 60. Tomorrow, much less humid than recent days, cooler too. Early cloud cover, then sunny, high in the 70s. Saturday starts sunny, then clouds up. There'll be some showers by day's end with high temps near 80.
All right, Kevin, thank you very much. Finally today, the biggest chunk of Mars ever found on Earth has just sold at auction for almost $5.5 million. Sotheby's in New York says the winning bidder wishes to remain anonymous. That space rock was found 2 years ago in the Sahara Desert. It's more than twice the size of any other known Martian meteorite.
It was ejected from the red planet, likely from a massive asteroid strike.
That's Cassandra Hatton at Sotheby's. She says the meteorite has a reddish-brown fusion crust, which gives it an unmistakable Martian hue. Now, if any tiny little green men crawl out of it, well, run for the hills, folks. And that's our world. The world we live in. Thursday, July 17th. I'm Bob Price. Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.